Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bordertown Strange. I'm Pam, and this is my co host, Jess.
Hello.
And tonight, we are diving into one of the most unsettling phenomena reported by paranormal investigators. It's the doppelganger. We're not talking about like the TikTok lookalikes or the celebrity twins, but these are the silent, emotionless doubles that appear where it shouldn't. Investigators have documented cases where a person is seen in two places at once. One version may be going about their day, and the other one standing motionless in a hallway, just staring. These sightings often come with a chill in the air, a sense of wrongness, and sometimes even missing time. Some believe these doubles are astral projections, your spirit stepping out while you're asleep, and others say they're interdimensional glitches, a peek into a parallel timelines. And then there are those who warn if your double looks at you, do not engage. So, have you ever seen your own double or somebody else's? Did it feel off? Did it speak? Be sure to email us at bordertownstrange@gmail.com and we might share your story on our social media. So now, before we dive in, Jess, do you want to do a little housekeeping and then we'll talk about our What the Weird Word of the Week?
Absolutely. All right. So, just the usual again. So, of course, thank you to all of our old and new followers. We appreciate you so much. If you're hanging out on Facebook, take a second just to like and share. And if you're on YouTube right now, go ahead, hit that thumbs up, hit that bell if you haven't yet. And if you're just a listener, you should be able to find us on all of your podcast providers. Hop on there, give us a ranking if you would. We would so appreciate it. Also, we wanted to announce we are getting ready for our big Halloween party coming up. It'll be on our usual night in 2 weeks. Wednesday night, October 22nd. We're going to have a big Halloween party. We're going to invite lots of friends in. We're just going to tell some spooky stories, maybe do some Halloween trivia. I'm thinking about bringing back the spooky story around the fire, the Mothman Halloween, I believe. I
Oh,
think we
yeah,
read Mothman Christmas last year for the Christmas party.
we did. That's funny.
Maybe we can convince some people to dress up. I don't know. But we'll have drinks and fun stories, so make sure you join us then. Hopefully, we have a whole cast of characters on to celebrate with us. Um, and I don't know if you realize this, Pam. I went and looked it up, and like I think our second show in the next season will be our 50th.
Wow, are you serious?
I'm very serious.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, that's about right because I think this is our 21st show for season two. So,
yeah,
yeah, man,
I
that's
know. We
crazy.
just might have to have a second party after the Christmas one, like a show or two after, just to celebrate our 50th.
That's wild. Remember when we hit 15 and we were so proud?
Yeah. I remember when we hit 21 and we our show could drink.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
funny.
So
Oh my
super cool. Yeah. Make sure to send us your stories or your show ideas. We would love to hear them. And then I think that's it. I think we can move on to what the weird word of the week.
sweet.
Um, give some shout outs to who all's in the chats. Looks like we have
Yeah,
a full room.
we do have a full room. We've got Ian's in there, Enzo's in there, Tony's in there, Julie, Sharon. Yeah, we've got a lot in there tonight. So, hey,
Yeah.
everybody.
Hey everyone.
Okay, so moving on to our What the Weird Word of the Week. We thought a fun one. We had talked about maybe doing doppelganger, but you're going to hear all about doppelganger tonight.
Yeah.
So we decided to go with bilocation, which is somewhat similar, but not quite. So the definition of bilocation, it's an alleged psychic or miraculous ability wherein an individual or object is located in two distinct places at the same time. Reports of bilocational phenomena have been made in a wide variety of historical and religious contexts, ranging from ancient Greek legends and Christian traditions to modern occultism. So that is our What the Weird Word of the Week. Woohoo!
Yay.
We got some more in the chat. We've got Chris, we've got Rick, we've got Ginger. Hi, everybody.
Hey everyone. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. This is going to be a fun one tonight.
It is. I'm excited.
Yeah. It's a really big topic. And like Pam was saying backstage, it's got so many kind of little subsects of it and beliefs on different versions of different kinds of doppelgangers that it can pretty much go anywhere. So we're gonna throw stuff at you tonight and see what sticks. And we have lots and lots of stories. We're gonna kind of run this. If you are a fan of the show, last year at this time we did our "Don't Look Out the Window" special.
And we creeped ourselves out so bad.
Yes, and I did it to myself again.
Yeah.
I'm a night owl. I will stay up until sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning just doing research because I love just sitting there and researching because I'm a nerd. And the last few nights I've had to shut it down early because I was like, some of these stories are a little
Too
much.
Yeah. A little too much. A little creep factor high.
Yeah, but we're gonna tell you kind of like what a doppelganger is. We're gonna talk about some of the roles they play in other cultures because they're worldwide.
They are.
We're gonna give you some examples of different kinds. We're gonna give you lots of stories, and feel free to pop up with your own opinions and stuff. We would love to hear it.
Yes.
Chelsea says that one was so good. Can't wait to hear all these stories too. There's some creeper ones in there, let me tell you.
There are.
Yeah. So did you want to start out, Pam, with like kind of what a doppelganger is and maybe their origins?
Sure thing. So when you go to define doppelganger, doppelganger itself is actually a German word for double walker. And in paranormal terms, a true doppelganger is something kind of akin to almost an evil twin, but maybe not always evil. It looks, it sounds, it dresses like you, and any differences will be extremely subtle. So if they're present, I mean, if there's any noticeable differences at all. Yet, even though somebody who knows you might see this doppelganger and actually believe it's you, but there's often a catch, like something about it, the way that it acts or, the way that it walks is just off enough that it freaks them out and causes the hairs on the back of their neck to stand up.
Kind of that uncanny valley.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Some people believe that these are all kinds of different things. There's so many different beliefs around the world, but one of those is that they could be spirit entities that have the capability of mimicking the living almost perfectly, and that's freaky. But yeah, we are going to talk about a lot of how they're seen in different cultures and what they're called. They go by so many different names, and like Jess said earlier, they're just subtle enough in their differences. It's almost like doppelganger is an umbrella term, and then there's all these little subsects underneath it. So we'll go over a few of those too. But let me see what I have. I just moved my sheet to the other screen. Let me pull it back. So we've got double walker or double goer, and that's the German literal term for it. And that was popularized in English through Catherine Crow's 1848 publication, The Night Side of Nature. So the German terminology, it's kind of recent, but they have been reported forever, pretty much, even back into ancient Egypt, where it was considered the ka, or the spirit of the body. So yeah, there's that. And then, you've got different types. You've got your death omen doppelgangers, which we were talking earlier. It's also a harbinger doppelganger. Appears most frequently during war times. And that'll be like when family members see relatives that should be miles away, often at war. And it's often they find out later that they spotted them at the same exact time that they died. So is that a true doppelganger, or is that a harbinger? Take your pick on that.
Or is it just their ghost because they passed just
their ghost
before
saying
it?
Goodbye? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Some of these get really fine or finite on their differences for sure. You've got your personal doppelgangers. Those involve individuals that encounter copies of themselves, and that is horribly creepy. And those are the ones that they're like, don't ever engage with them because it could, it's said that if you do engage, it could cause one of you to die. So who wants to mess with that? Nobody. And then you've got your living person doubles. So that occurs sometimes when someone's doppelganger appears while they're still alive, typically indicating impending danger or a significant life change coming. But these entities demonstrate specific behavioral patterns that kind of distinguish them from other mimic types. Doppelgangers, they're typically, again, slightly insubstantial, maybe a little faded, or they lack a physical weight to them. So they look like a faded copy standing in front of them. You know, they rarely speak. They hardly ever interact directly. Instead, they seem to appear briefly and then they vanish when approached, suggesting that they do operate as omens rather than an interactive entity. And, you know, you've got Celtic folklore that describes similar things. But they call those fetches. And we may ask Ian, I read somewhere that that's also what they're called in England too. So I'm curious to know if that's how you know them. And the most unsettling variation often involves individuals waking to find their own corpse-like fetch sharing their bed, which immediately makes them think that that's a death omen, which is freaky. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So that's kind of a definition of what we're looking at. We threw a lot at you right there. So, yeah. We'll definitely be here.
Yeah. They've been called a lot over the years, too. Researching this, I kept finding multiple types of names that people have thrown at them besides doppelganger. So I also found, of course, mimics, but twin strangers, evil twins, double spirits, alter egos, shadow selves, shapeshifters, you name it. I think just about any kind of name you throw at it, they have. Mm-hmm. And then we'll also be discussing, a lot of people think that some other things are actually doppelgangers, like the Jinn. Rosemary Ellen Guiley was a big proponent of Jinn kind of being back behind just about everything. And then Black-Eyed Kids, Men in Black, those have all been pointed to also. So it's like Pam mentioned earlier, like there's a lot of different routes that these things can take. Yet another reason why we always say it's all connected.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to do, I want to make sure that we kind of stick to a particular line here. And Pam mentioned earlier, there's a fine line you ride on the definition. I'm a big proponent that if that person has passed and then you see their doppelganger, it's not a doppelganger. You're seeing their spirit or their ghost who've come probably to say goodbye or walk up the last, path that they loved or, what have you. And as I was researching, Wikipedia reared its ugly head at me.
As it often does.
It does. I've actually, just so you know, I actually like Wikipedia. It's a really good way to find fairly good dates. Mm-hmm. But it's also a really good way to know what not to research or to what to look into so you can see the other side of it. I use that a lot with Wikipedia. I'll go down through their listing of stuff and go, that's not right. That's not right. And then I can know what to list when I'm telling somebody what not to look for or what route not to take. And like I said, Wikipedia reared its ugly head again. So on the page for doppelgangers on Wikipedia, they actually had this as one of the main stories. And I'm going to read it because it's really short. But it's going to give you an example of how off Wikipedia is on what a doppelganger is. Or whoever wrote the thing for Wikipedia, of course, because it's a compilation of people.
Yeah, it's open source.
On there. Yeah. And here's the example they listed. A Victorian-age example was the supposed appearance of Vice Admiral Sir George Tryon. He was said to have walked through the drawing room of his family home in Eaton Square, London, looking straight ahead, without exchanging a word to anyone, in front of several guests at a party being given by his wife on the 22nd of June, 1893, while he was supposed to be on a ship off the Mediterranean fleet, maneuvering off the coast of Syria. Subsequently, it was reported that he had actually gone down with his ship, the HMS Victoria, the very same night after it collided with the HMS Camperdown, following an unexplained and bizarre order to turn the ship in the direction of the other vessel. He had already passed, and he was simply making a last visit to his home. You hear this often, especially with war stories, people dying in war, and family members report seeing their loved one, at the end of their bed or walking the hallway or, coming to them and smiling and then disappearing. And then they later find out that they had passed in battle. So, in my opinion, this is not a doppelganger. This is simply a loved one's spirit coming back for its one last visit or walk. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you think, Pam?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like you said, there's we were kind of talking backstage too about, we say this a lot. There used to be 3 different camps. There used to be the ghost, the UFO, and the cryptid camp. And we tried with the Paracon to get all those 3 camps together because we realized during our research that a lot of the camps were seeing the same things and just calling them by different names. And I kind of think that's what we're seeing to some extent with this particular topic, is there may be things that are getting called doppelgangers that are actually something else. Mm-hmm. And so again, it is all connected. So that's probably where you're going to see some of this stuff fall under a very wide open term, if we call it a doppelganger that way. It's probably not the best one to use as the overarching term for it, but that's where we're at right now. So
yeah, it's
we'll come
tough.
up with something better later. It is tough.
We need to build like a doppelganger ranking.
Yes.
I don't know, because so like if you were to touch on, a lot of these stories include just an audio.
Yes. Or you hear keys, land on a table. What is that?
Yeah. So is that a doppelganger, or is it simply maybe like a residual? You're hearing a replay of something that happens often. I was telling Pam about an experience I'd had like that. I don't really consider it a doppelganger. I consider it a residual sound. But of course, people have heard just an audio like that. I've found stories where people were like, playing in the room when they're little, and they heard their mom call for them, and they ran downstairs to see what she needed and found out that she hadn't been home all day. It was just their dad. Do you call that a doppelganger, or is that maybe a mischievous ghost who is just good at mimicry?
And see,
or
that's something
does
else.
That make them a doppelganger because they mimicked a voice? See, I don't know where to draw the line at completely.
Yeah, this would be a fun one to actually try to classify. Chelsea just said maybe a class system like with UFO encounters, like a class 1 encounter, class 2, etc. Maybe.
Ooh,
that's not a bad idea.
Maybe we should develop that. Maybe we'll get famous.
Maybe not, but
no, we won't.
Let me go into the chat real quick. Rick said, my favorite is being accused of being somewhere I'm not because someone sees someone who looks like my twin. Yeah, that does happen. Mm-hmm. And see, that's something different too. So I don't know. I mean,
I have a story like that. I was almost arrested one night in Tulsa because of a doppelganger.
Oh, I've heard this story.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I have heard that one. Mm-hmm. And so said, I've had that one myself, Rick. It did involve Las Vegas, so anything is possible.
Uh-oh.
It's funny. Sharon said, I know someone whose best friend passed and he saw him several times. So did he see him after he passed? Or so would that be a haunting more? Or would it be, did he see him in different, was he still alive, but he saw him in doppelganger form prior to his death? That's interesting.
Yeah, see?
You have to let us know.
There's some thin lines we're treading here.
Mm-hmm. And Ian said, if I die in battle, unlikely, I'm off to have a mooch around the Vatican Secret Archive. Heck yeah.
Ooh, well,
Just
if
as
you
long
do,
as you
get
come.
back with us.
Yeah, come tell us about it. And Tony said, Grandma saw Grandpa coming home early from work and then disappearing, only to have him actually found later, leaning against a fence post dead hours before she would have seen him. Wow,
Ooh,
that's wild.
wow.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. So with that would be one of those where he came back to tell her basically, hey,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Tony, that's wild. Huh. Sharon said, her best friend passed and he saw him several times. That was after in different places. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting. Tony said, right? Yeah, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. Poor grandma. Poor grandpa. Poor both of them.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
wild. Interesting. This is going to be a fun one.
Cool. It is. So what do we want to do next? Do we want to like talk about some of the other cultures, or do we want to like hop into some of the stories? What do you want to do?
Let's do a little bit of the culture because I think
Okay.
it's interesting. The fact that it is worldwide speaks
Mm-hmm.
volumes because it's one of those things. If it was just like only in a small area that this occurred, I would be more suspicious of it. But it's everywhere, and it's
It is.
like every culture has it. So
Well,
yeah,
you go ahead and so Pam and I we researched independently from each other, so we have a little bit of what each other has. So I'm gonna let Pam start because I know I have a little bit more than her, and that way she can get hers in, and then I'll fill in the last few that I had as spares.
okay. So some of mine are going to bounce back and forth because you've got hang on, let me see where I'm at here. I kind of went out of order on my stuff, which you know how bad that can be. Okay, let's see here.
I just turned the page.
Well, I tried that, but unfortunately, I have a little at the top and a bunch more at the bottom. So you know how that
Okay.
goes. Okay, so let's see. Like in many European traditions, especially the Germanic folklore, seeing your doppelganger is considered a dire omen. It's often said to foretell death, illness, or disaster. And then you've got in Celtic lore, you've got they called theirs a fetch, and that it was a spectral double seen before death, often appearing to loved ones as a warning. So that's kind of interesting. Now you've got ancient Egyptians, and they believed in the Ka, which is a spiritual double that accompanied a person throughout life and into the afterlife. And then you've got Norse mythology, which had the Cardiger, which is a ghostly precursor. Someone hears or sees a person before they actually arrive, suggesting like a spiritual echo. I've also seen this called in other places arrival cases. So that would be when like you don't know somebody's coming over, but you catch a glimpse of them out of the corner of your eye, or you hear them say your name or something weird like that, and then they show up unexpectedly after that, which is pretty cool. Um, okay, let me zip on down here to the others. Okay. And then the others, what I have down here, it's more kind of different things other than just doppelgangers, because you've got your mimic entities, right? And that's one of those fine lines again, is it? Because these beings, they can replicate the voice, the appearance, or the behavior of loved ones, but they seem to try to lure victims into danger. They're often described as either ghosts, demons, or cryptids, and they use impersonation deliberately, so it's not a random thing. Um, these will be more of it makes me think of the Appalachian folklore, where if you hear something say your name, no, you didn't, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, but the mimics can also be seen, and it may be more of a doppelganger, but it does appear slightly faded, emotionless, or off. So it triggers that instinctive self-preservation, that unease that comes with okay, this is danger kind of thing. But you've also got, moving on from that, we've got Navajo tradition, And that would
Mm-hmm.
move more to like skinwalkers, which are the witches that can transform into animals or people that they've harmed. They can mimic voices or appearances to try to trick family members, and they often appear at night or near sacred sites. And their presence is considered deeply taboo and dangerous. Um, and then if you go into the Celtic folklore, you've got the changeling legends. You've got fairies or spirits that were brought to replace a child with a look-alike, but it was often like emotionless or sickly. It wasn't always malicious, but they do represent kind of an identity theft and a spiritual intrusion, though. And
Mm-hmm.
some tales included adults that were being replaced or even mirrored by fairy doubles, which is kind of an interesting way. That's again, you've got that maybe instead of the three camps of paranormal research, maybe this is, if you look at the different cultures, it's a camp. They
Mm-hmm.
come, the Celtic folklore is very heavy on the fae and things. So they consider these to be like fairy doubles or or not doppelgangers or changelings, things like that, just based on what they know. Then, like you talked about earlier with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, you've got the jinn impersonators. That comes through the Middle Eastern lore. Certain jinn are said to take human form and mimic specific people to deceive or manipulate. And these impersonations may occur during sleep or illness or when a person is spiritually vulnerable. And then you've got the jinn that may double, or jinn doubles that may appear in dreams or shadows, but they often again have that subtle flaw. And that every time I was seeing that, it just throws me back. I'm really interested in the fae, and that's usually how you can tell something is fae, is they may look human, but there's going to be one bit of them, a physical bit of them that is flawed. So I thought that was interesting to see that popping up in some of the other cultures too. And then
Yeah.
you've got, if you go to Norse mythology, you've got Loki, which he's the ultimate trickster. Loki can
Yeah.
shapeshift into animals and humans, and can sometimes even get away with impersonating gods or mortals in his transformations. They're all about chaos, deception, and unintended consequences. So those are the biggies that I had. What other ones did you have? Or
So I found in Finnish mythology, they have, well, it's a doppelganger, only their name for it is a tiainen. That's their name for the exact same thing that we call a doppelganger. I found in Muslim religion, they have it's spelled Karen, which I thought was hilarious. I think it's pronounced Karen. Um, and it's a benevolent or harmful spirit double of the same sex, race, and parallel temperament as the person it is connected to. It bears children, which are the spirit doubles of the person's children. And in some places, the Karen is the opposite sex of the person it represents. When malicious, it often tries to persuade the person it is connected to into following their bad whims. So it's a little bit more even devious
that's
than
wild. Yeah.
your usual one. In Persian mythology, and I'm going to try to pronounce this, it's going to be awful. I apologize to anyone who understands this. Uh, Zoroastrianism. And it's basically the belief that a twin is manifested from some people that creates kind of a duality of good and evil. So basically, if you are at the right time or the present mind, you'll accidentally pop out a version of yourself that's either good to your evil or evil to your good.
So again, there's that evil twin kind of thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, we've got trowels, which are, Scotland type of area, Celtic. And it's almost like a changeling. They Trowels gave birth to children who were apt to be ill or sickly. Pregnant women were carefully guarded from the Trowels, who would often steal their healthy human babies and replace them with their own, known as changelings, who would transform into exact replicas of the stolen children, except for they would still be sickly. And I will add this: there's kind of a stigma involved with the Trowels. It often gave women back in the day permission to do away with children who
Yeah.
were born with handicaps and stuff, because they assumed that it wasn't their real baby, that it was a changeling. So a little sadness involved with
Yeah.
that folklore there. Of course, Pam mentioned, just the basic Celtic and European, the changelings, the oafs, things like that, skinwalkers. I also found a really interesting one. The Japanese have a version of the doppelganger, but that legend is a little bit hairier than just a normal doppelganger.
You tell.
They have something called a kiryo, which means living ghost, and it's actually the spirit of a living person. It will detach itself from its living body and go seek out the subject of a grudge and place harm on them. So if you're ticked off at somebody, your spirit is apt to slide away from you while you're sleeping and go off and, do the bad stuff you're not willing to do while you're awake. It's kind of terrible.
It's kind of terrible, but at the same time, I could see people being like, "Oh yeah, that was my doppelganger that went and did that last night. It wasn't me. It wasn't me."
So apparently, besides like attacking this person you're ticked off at, it can also cast curses on its victim. And it can also simply just leave you to go and let your friends and family know that you are soon to pass. So it's also working as like a harbinger too, depending on which version of it you kind of attribute to.
Enzo said Japanese paranormal is always a bit extra creepy. You are correct.
They are good at that.
I love it.
And
Karen over here said, "My twin sister's Karen." That's funny.
I thought it was appropriate. It was a Karen, right?
And Enzo, I did not know this. Enzo said, "I was born a twin. He died during childbirth. I'll leave it up to you if you got the good or the evil one." Oh, wow.
Ooh, bum.
That's wild.
That is
did not
wild.
know that.
The last big one that I found, and this one's scary too. Like, they just kept getting hairier the more I read them. This one is Icelandic and Scandinavian folklore based. And these are called the Agi Hamirs. They are a mysterious band of warriors who dwell in the frozen wastelands and take on the form of any living entity that can cross their minds. They also possess the ability to take over the minds of people and animals, plunging them into a hypnotic state or altered state and making it look as if they had just shapeshifted. So you're getting like a duality here. So they can not only copy and mimic someone and become them, but they can also force that onto somebody and make it look as if they're a doppelganger of themselves because they aren't quite right and they're not acting exactly the right way they should. So scary.
That is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to see why we creeped ourselves out with this one.
Yeah, all sorts of fun, creepy stuff. And we're also, maybe after we tell some stories, we're going to talk a little bit about maybe what we think causes these. Or, I mean, I have lots of ideas, like parallel universes and glitches in the Matrix and all sorts of fun stuff we can kind of dig into.
Yes. That would be cool to do.
Yeah. All right. So, who wants to do the first story?
Ooh, let me back mine up again. Get back to where I need to be. I can start out. Let me start out with a couple of historical ones.
Go for it.
And then we'll get into more of the more recent ones. So some of the more famous ones, we've got Queen Elizabeth I. And in 1603, she saw her fetch lying in bed looking pallid, shriveled, and wan. And then she ended up dying just a few days later at age 65, ending her 44-year reign, which that's pretty. And that was well documented. Actually started out with some of her ladies, if I remember the story correctly, saw her walk in to the room, but knew she wasn't in there, knew she was somewhere else. So they went to her and said, "Hey, you need to come see this." And when she went in, that's when she saw herself lying there. And then just days later, she died. So that's an interesting one. That's almost one of those harbingers, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
then we've got Abraham Lincoln. His is kind of the same, though, more of a harbinger. So, on the night of his first presidential election in 1860, Lincoln looked into a mirror and he saw two reflections of himself. One looked normal, and one was pale and ghostly beside it. And then his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, she believed that the pale reflection meant that Lincoln would not survive his second term. And she saw it as more of a supernatural warning of illness or death. And then it really disturbed Lincoln, and he reportedly tried to rationalize the vision, but still he did mention it multiple times, and so really seemed to be like haunted by what the implications of that could have been. And it ended up being a foreshadowing because he was assassinated in 1865, just months into his second term. So the vision, this one's often cited as a premonition of his impending fate, kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, we've got Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. He was a German poet, and in 1771, he had a vision of his doppelganger. While he was traveling to Drennan, he imagined seeing himself in unfamiliar clothing, riding in a vehicle in the opposite direction. And then 8 years later, he found himself on the same road, wearing the very same clothes that he had imagined. But it's when he saw that, when the realization came to him that he was on that same road, that's when he was like, wait a minute, I'm actually wearing what saw
Mm.
before, 8 years before. And then you've got the poet Percy Shelley. He was one of the major English romantic poets, and he was the husband of Mary Shelley, that author of Frankenstein. And in 1822, about a month before he drowned in a boating accident, he claimed to have seen a figure resembling himself walking on a terrace, silent and ghostly. And this eerie encounter, it occurred shortly before he drowned, off the coast of Italy. And his wife, Mary Shelley, she gave her account, later writing that Percy had spoken of seeing his double multiple times, and that one version had included seeing himself in a dream approaching silently. So that one's pretty interesting, I think, because there was a lot more to his story too. Apparently, he had a wife prior to Mary that ended up drowning mysteriously, and they found out she was pregnant when she drowned, and he was very, very much a womanizer. So, but he did apparently see his doppelganger multiple times, but not only him, other people saw his doppelganger as well. And the majority of them were walking along this one particular terrace, which kind of makes you wonder, is that a more of a residual, now that I'm thinking that. Um, and then you've got the author, Guy de Maupassant. In 1885, he was at work on a short story, and he was experiencing, like, writer's block, which a lot of authors do get. But according to him, a figure appeared at the door of the writer's study, walked across the room, and sat down opposite of him. And Maupassant was amazed that anybody had gotten into his study, and was even more amazed when the intruder proceeded to dictate the words of the author's story back to him. And it was then that he took a good look at this intruder and realized this was not a stranger, it was his own double. But before long, that apparition disappeared, leaving him to continue the tale as it had been dictated. And what it ended up being was pretty wild. It's the story of an invisible spirit that lives within a man, yet is independent of that man, and the being cannot be escaped, and it tortures its host to madness. He did publish this story. It was titled The Horla, Horla, and some feel it was like more of a foreshadowing of Maupassant's subsequent madness and death. He himself confirmed his recurring encounters with his doppelganger, saying, "Every other time I come home, I see my double. I open my door and I see him sitting in my armchair. I know it's a hallucination even while I'm experiencing it, but it's extremely curious. And if I didn't have a little common sense, I'd be afraid." So he felt that he had reason to believe that these sightings of his spectral double were hallucination, because this dude, and I didn't realize this until I read it, he had a long battle with syphilis. And so that can really affect your mental state. And he was aware that his mental state was slowly deteriorating. And as time went on, he became increasingly unpredictable and paranoid, and even became obsessed with the idea that flies were eating his brain, which is wild.
Oh,
Yeah. So
ew.
after he wrote La Horla in 1887, he ended up committing suicide. And or in a suicide attempt, and he was admitted into an asylum in 1892. But then in 1893, he did die. So whether this presence of his doppelganger, if it was supernatural of nature, whether it was a vision, an auditory hallucination, how can you tell? But it's really wild because he bases the majority of this story that he wrote that this thing dictated it to him. So he was either visited repeatedly by a paranormal apparition of death, or he spent his time alone talking to an empty room, and writing with a companion who didn't even exist. So that one was wild. I wanted to leave that in there just for that reason, because it's another one of those, what was this?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's weird that he ended up with this doppelganger inspired tale, and that it ended up more resembling an autobiographical work. And it was his, basically captured his final battle with his own demons. So yeah, that one's pretty wild. Yeah, I thought those are the older ones that I have.
I have
Ian
a couple
said
of older
Queen Elizabeth
ones.
I was close with some interacting characters, notably occultist and alchemist John Dee. Yes, or Queen Mary. Yes, you're right. Yeah, she was. And I did see something on hers, and I didn't get it down in this, and I wish I would have. But she had seen a doppelganger as well.
Yeah, there's lots of stories. I found a couple beyond what Pam had. I thought this one was kind of funny. It will kind of lighten the mood from the flies eating that dude's.
It's pretty wild, isn't it?
In 1906, British Parliament member Sir Gilbert Parker was attending a debate when he spotted Sir Frederick Carney Rash, a fellow Parliament member, sitting nearby. This greatly surprised Sir Gilbert, as Sir Frederick had been severely ill with influenza at the time. Still, he politely greeted Sir Frederick and told him, "I hope you're feeling better." Carney Rash didn't react in any way. He just sat there with a stony, grim expression on his face. When Sir Gilbert soon glanced at his friend again, the seat was completely empty. Bewildered, he searched for him in the lobby, only to find that no one had seen him pass by. When he discussed the event with fellow parliamentarians, it turned out others had seen Carney Rash too. When the real Carney Rash, who had been sick in bed all along, found out about the incident, he was quite unsurprised. He had really wanted to take part in the debate, so to him it had made sense that his spirit had had a sneak peek. His family, however, was terrified and feared the doppelganger was a bad sign. In a small way, they were right. For quite some time, Carney Rash was annoyed by fellow Parliament members who kept poking him with their fingers to make sure he was flesh and blood. In the end, he had to write a massively sarcastic letter to a local newspaper apologizing that he didn't have the good sense to die at the time of the doppelganger sighting and promised to behave better the next time.
It's funny.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Production expenses, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The other old one I'm going to tell, I've actually, I had to go back. I couldn't remember where I told it, and I think it was a part of the Notebook games. I told the story of Emelisa G, who's one of the most famous.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's one of my favorite ones. It's out of a really old notebook, and I went and pulled it back up again so we can retell it, because it's a fascinating doppelganger story. It's a tale of a 32-year-old French woman named Emelisa G. She was a teacher at Pincelinat. I can't say the name. It was an exclusive girls' school. I'll just say that. Near Walmart.
In Livonia, later
Latvia. One day in 1845, while Saji was writing on the blackboard, her exact double appeared beside her. The doppelganger was precisely copied the teacher's every move as she wrote, except that it didn't hold any chalk. 13 students in that classroom witnessed the event. During the next year, Saji's doppelganger was seen several more times. The most astonishing instance of this took place in full view of the entire student body of 42 students on a summer day in 1846. As they sat at long tables working, they could see Saji in the school's garden gathering flowers. When the teacher left the room to talk to the headmistress, Saji's doppelganger appeared in her chair while the real Saji could still be seen in the garden. Two girls approached the phantom and tried to touch it, but felt an odd resistance in the air surrounding it. The image then slowly vanished.
You know what's interesting
Crazy.
about that too is the fact that they could see her out in the flower garden. And when she appeared in the chair, they immediately looked out there. She's still out there, but they noticed that she started slowing way down in the garden and not moving as quickly as she was. It's almost like she was moving through water. And then once the apparition in the chair disappeared, it's like she sped back up again. And that's crazy. And the girls actually went and asked her, hey, what was happening at that time? And she said that she was thinking, she had seen the other teacher left and was like, man, really wish I was in there with those girls so they don't get in trouble, because apparently, they could, any girl that age, especially 42 of them in one room without a teacher, somebody's going to do something they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's almost as if a kind of astral projection in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's put part of herself in there almost purposely without realizing that she's done it. And sadly, there was a lot more incidences than that I'm not going to go into because we don't have time. But she was eventually asked to leave the school because the parents were becoming frightened what this doppelganger might do to the students. Mm-hmm. Although this doppelganger had actually never done anything bad, just mimicked and sat. So
it was just freaky, scared of the fear of the unknown kind of thing. Yeah, they did. When it got down to 12 students left in the school, the headmaster was like, yeah, we're going to I don't care how good you are. We're going to have to let you go. And at the time when they let her go, she was like, this is the 19th time I've lost my position in my 16 years of teaching. And it was for the same thing. So that's kind of interesting. It's like she's one of those that had that twin that went with her through life kind of thing. So
if it were me, I think I would have stayed home and let my doppelganger go teach.
There you go.
Yeah. And then you don't get in trouble and you don't have to work.
That's funny.
So what we kind of did here, I really hit like social media hard for like good stories out of chat rooms, Reddit, Quora, things like that. Pam hit more of the books, although I think she has probably some stories that she found online too. And I think we're just going to take some turns going back and forth and kind of telling some of these stories because they're fantastic. Before we start, I do want to put out there our little disclaimer that we always do when we're reading from chat rooms and things like that. We don't own the rights to these stories. We can't always find the names of the originators of these stories, so we're just going to put it out there that these are from social media. We do not own the rights to these.
Chelsea said, a built-in substitute teacher? Heck yeah, right?
That's what I'm thinking. Right? You feel sick? Just send your doppelganger. Be like, you go. I'm staying home today.
For sure.
Mama needs a paycheck. Go get it.
That's hilarious.
All right. So I'm going to start off here, and we'll just go back and forth. So, I found this one on Reddit, I believe. Around 15 years ago, when both of my kids were toddlers, I was putting them to bed one night, and my son was adamant that he wear his favorite red race car pajamas. I happily obliged, helped him change into them, and tucked him into bed. Then I sat down at my kitchen table with a friend who had come over to chat and catch up. My friend and I were talking for a while before we were suddenly interrupted by the sound of my son screaming. We both turned and looked at the bedroom doorway and saw my son standing there, crying loudly and shrieking, and wearing his green pajamas with the airplanes on them. Everything inside me was screaming that this was wrong. My friend and I wordlessly stared at each other for another second. We both knew that my son couldn't change his pajamas by himself yet. We looked back at the doorway and my son was gone. We ran to the bedroom and found him still tucked in bed, still sleeping peacefully in his red race car pajamas.
Crap.
My friend asked me if I saw him standing there in his green airplane pajamas, and I confirmed that I had. My friend freaked out and left. I slept on my kids' bedroom floor that night to make sure nothing happened to them. My friend and I still talk about it to this day. It's one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. My son, of course, doesn't remember any of it, but he loves hearing the story of how his doppelganger scared the crap out of us.
Oh my God.
Now, I'm going to say this, like,
Awful.
if you had heard this from like an adult version, like she saw her husband step out in different clothes and that, it wouldn't be nearly as scary. It's the kid aspect. If you throw a kid into any creepy story, it makes it 20 times creepier.
It does. Boy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Goodness. You me do one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this one is on a gentleman named Gordon Barrows, and it's going to be one of those, is it a doppelganger or what the hell was this thing? Okay. So Gordon Barrows, he was later to become the managing editor of a trade journal called World Petroleum. And after he was discharged from the Army in 1946, he returned home to see his parents in Wyoming, and then he ended up going to college at the University of Wyoming in Laramie. So while he was at school that winter, he decided he would use a Jeep that he'd purchased earlier at the sale of surplus Army equipment. And it was parked at his parents' house. So during spring break, he went home to pick up the Jeep, and then he set off for Laramie. But it was like bitterly cold, and he was bundled up in like a parka and mitten and boots to drive this Jeep home, right? And he'd driven through the day and into the night, and a blizzard hit. So there were cars stopped all along the road, but he kept going in the Jeep. And as he topped a hill and started down into a canyon, he saw a man walking along the side of the road, and he stopped to offer the guy a ride. And when the figure walked within range of the Jeep headlights, Barrows had a start. The man looked just like him, and he was wearing a light tank court jacket, just like the one he wore during the war. And somehow, this is Barrows' words, somehow this odd coincidence seemed to be the most natural thing in the world. And as the figure approached, he said to Barrows, "You look sleepy. Do you want me to drive?" And in fact, the young man, Barrows, he was exhausted from all the driving. He'd been driving for like 18 hours, and he was numb from the cold and everything. So Barrows says, "Sure," and he goes to sleep. And this other man takes the wheel. And the next thing he recalled was waking up in silence. The engine was not running, and the man was sitting motionless in the driver's seat. They were at the end of the canyon, and Laramie was a straight shot ahead on ground level, like 40 miles away. And so the passenger gets out of the driver's side of the Jeep, didn't refuse to ride on into Laramie. And when Barrows thanked him, he simply replied, "You're welcome," and started walking back into the canyon. And Barrows recalled at that time that the events all seemed natural, and in his words, like in a dream in which preposterous things seemed the most ordinary. But it was not a dream. And Barrows knows that if any human being had been walking in that snow-swept canyon, he could not have survived more than an hour or two. Barrows believed his own life was saved by his double.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
And weird.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It's almost like his double was like, "Okay, dude, you're going to die in this canyon unless I intervene. So I'm intervening." But it's interesting because it's not like a future him. It's actually him in what he wore while he was in the service, which would be past him.
Yeah. That's weird.
That's why I was like, I don't know. What is that? What would that qualify under?
See,
because they interacted.
Yeah, this is why Pam and I are having so much trouble like categorizing. But of course, that's what comes with trying to categorize things. We're always telling everybody stop categorizing things. It's all connected, and then here's us trying to categorize things.
Trying to figure it out. Yeah. Well, I mean, just for the sake of making the stories fit our topic, but yeah, I don't know. I thought that one was too good to leave out, though.
It is crazy. All right. The one I'm going to do is one of the ones that we're kind of like on the line about. This one is an audio one, but it's just so nuts.
Ian said
Yeah,
that's one for Enzo's road trip.
there you go. This one is just so nuts. It's super short, but I just thought it was so interesting. So it says, my brother heard something pretending to be our mom by mimicking her voice. Exactly. When he realized that it wasn't her, the spirit's voice completely changed and said, "Yes, I am." Um, and then that was the short of it. And I thought, well, how interesting that its voice changed halfway through when it was accused of not being the mother. Its voice changed and it said, "Yes, I am." So now, are we dealing with a doppelganger? Or are we dealing with something else? But more interesting than that, below that, someone else had commented
It
and
almost
it
sounds more
said, yeah, it said, "Oh my, OMG, I think your brother is the only person besides me to have heard their voice change, or the only story I've read about it. I was confronted with something pretending to be my stepdad and calling my name from the bottom of the stairs. I got angry that my stepfather was bothering me. I got up to go down the stairs and yelled back that I was coming when suddenly its voice changed and it started screaming. And it screamed my name at the top of its lungs. That's when I realized it wasn't my stepdad. It sounded like two voices put together, like the sound of an old woman and something else, just pure evil."
ew, ew.
Yeah. But it was listed like as a doppelganger. So I was like, this might be a good way to kind of show, like, is this a doppelganger? Is this, if you are Christian based, you might say it's demonic.
Yeah.
Um, is it a horrible ghost that's just very good at mimicry? I don't know.
Is it a trickster spirit? Is it Jinn?
Yeah.
Is it Fae? What the heck is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I've got one here. It's from Richard Estep, which he is a well-known paranormal investigator and author. And this is out of one of his books. He had a doppelganger that put in an appearance one night at the old Cripple Creek Jail in the mountains of Colorado. And it was they were doing a charity paranormal investigation, and he was joining a whole bunch of ghost hunters, and they were all doing their bit to help raise money for this place. And this particular jail, it's now operating as Outlaws and Lawmen Jail Museum. And the jail's built on 2 levels. And so after he climbed up to the 2nd floor, one of Richard's colleagues encountered Richard standing in the upper hallway, just apparently minding his own business. So he didn't speak or acknowledge this guy in any way. And the colleague, he didn't think anything of it, because everybody's ghost hunting. So you don't want to intrude if they're doing something. So he just simply continued along his way, along the exterior landing until he got to the first cell that was occupied. So when he goes to step into the cell, he passes another paranormal investigator who'd been standing in that doorway for the past 15 minutes. And then this colleague, he sees Richard sitting in the middle of the floor conducting an EVP session. And Richard's colleague, he stops dead in his tracks and he's just like, what the heck? And, of course, he was able to testify. The guy standing in the door was able to testify, he's been here the whole time. I've been standing here for 15 minutes. He's been sitting on this floor. And so what was it that colleague saw? He, assuming it's not a hallucination, it couldn't have possibly been Richard because Richard was somewhere else. And they did a check of the entire jail, confirmed that there was nobody else in the building that would have fit his description. And what was interesting, the colleague was certain that this imposter's facial features, physical build, haircut, and most of his clothing were an exact copy of Richard's. There was one key difference. His shirt was a different color, which that's interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is
So
interesting.
is it a doppelganger, or is that some type of time slip or, an extra dimensional version of Richard that kind of overlapped right then?
Maybe.
Yeah. The good news is, he never came face to face with the doppelganger because that was Richard's thing. What would happen if he did? So he actually wondered how severe the consequences would have been if he would have actually stumbled upon this guy himself, this doppelganger.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's good to note while we're on researching the paranormal and doing investigations. It's good to note when it comes to audio stuff, when people are running EVP sessions, it is not unheard of to get mimics that come across. I've heard on numerous occasions people talking that I knew were not in the room. Mm-hmm. Other team members that were literally not there to have picked up on it. And what phenomenon that is exactly, if it's ghost related, somehow doppelganger related, but it happens a lot where something will mimic the voice of another team member, or sometimes I've heard of them mimicking yourself back to you. When you go back and listen to the EVPs, you'll hear some, hypothetically saying, you were like, is there anyone here with us? And then you'll hear yourself say back, I'm here.
Yeah.
When you
know it darn good well. Yeah.
Yeah. It happens more often than you think. So that's something else interesting to kind of consider when we're going through some of these. If it wasn't crazy enough, there's another aspect to think about. Yeah. Cool. So the one I'm going to do, I thought was another super interesting kind of example. So one night my best friend was supposed to drop by to drink a few beers and shoot some pool. At 5 minutes to 8, I hear a knock on my door, so I get off the couch and head over to let him in. I open the door and it's Brian, the same guy I've known for more than 15 years, a slight smile on his face. Only thing missing was the 12 backup beers he told me that he was bringing. What's up? Did you forget the beers or did you drink them all on the drive over? No response. Just this strange, calm smile, but he still says nothing. I'm perplexed to say the least. Before I can tell him to come in or ask about the silent treatment, he does a quick turn to his right and begins to walk back up my driveway. This is when I noticed his truck was not in the driveway or anywhere where I could see. I live in a rural area with a long gravel drive, and he's just walking back up it. No vehicle in sight. I finally snap out of it and say something like, "Hey, yo, Brian, what's up?" And again, no response. He continues up my driveway until he reaches a bend and walks out of my sight. I'm left completely dumbstruck. I've known this dude for over a decade, never been a prankster to my knowledge. I close the door and head back to my living room. I grab my phone and I call Brian. No answer. Wait a few minutes, call again. No answer. The house is unusually quiet with just me there. A couple minutes pass and my phone rings, and it's Brian. He says he's still on his way over, but he got pulled over on the way to the liquor store and got a seatbelt ticket. He's laughing about it and sounds like his usual self. He saw my calls but didn't want to answer while sitting on the side of the road with an officer writing out his ticket. I'm still confused, but I just tell him we're still on, come on over and we'll shoot pool like we planned. A little over 10 minutes later, I hear a vehicle door close. I'm a little jumpy, so I'm already out the door and looking to meet him halfway. It is Brian, holding up his ticket for the seatbelt in one hand and an entire case of beer under the other arm. He's joking that I have to pay the ticket now since he paid for the beer. I didn't tell him what happened, and I've never told anybody. I tried to forget about it and just went about our night as if nothing happened. I couldn't think of what to say, because how do you explain something like that? I was flummoxed and just went with it. I know what I saw, and I know who it was, or who it was supposed to be. I honestly have no explanation. So that thing, showed up his door without a vehicle. It just walked in and then walked away.
Enzo said that's only fair. I'm assuming that's that he paid the ticket.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's wild.
Yeah. I thought it was a crazy one.
Goodness. Okay, I have a fun one. This is out of Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits, and Haunted Places. And we've got a couple of slides that will show what books that we're pulling from today.
Yeah.
This particular one, it's the title of its White Form Gliding Away Struck the Doctor, which completely got my interest. So this one is a Mrs. Margaret Sargent. She's a certified nurse, and she was caring for a young woman in Augusta, Georgia, when at about 11 p.m., the patient took a dramatic turn for the worse. The physician did not wish to wake the patient's mother for fear of adding to her emotional stress. Sergeant later recalled that they knew that the patient had previously expressed that she wanted to have her mother present at all times, but since she had become unconscious, we didn't think it necessary to satisfy that desire. The doctor and the nurse recognized that the girl was going to pass on, and they stood solemnly by her bedside, anticipating the moment of the young woman's death. Sargent was sitting at the foot of the bed when she glanced up and saw a white form advancing, and it was in a robed form. She was unable to see the robed figure's face because it was turned away from her, but she was clearly able to observe its form as the figure remained for a moment by the inert physical body of the young female patient. Then it passed swiftly past the doctor and glided toward me, but always turning its face in the opposite direction, she said. Just before the apparition passed through the wall to the room in which the patient's mother lay sleeping, it paused and struck the doctor a smart blow on the shoulder. Startled, the physician turned around and saw nothing and remarked perplexedly to his nurse that something had struck him on the shoulder. Sergeant managed to overcome her awe and tell him that the woman who had just passed by him was the one responsible for the blow. What woman? The doctor asked. There's no woman in this room but that poor young dying lady in the bed. But someone struck me. What does this mean? Before either of them could speculate further, the patient began to mumble in a feeble voice, and to their complete astonishment, she had regained her senses. She remained conscious for another 24 hours before she died with her head resting on her mother's arm. It's almost like, I can't go, you jerk. Or this thing, is like, we could have taken her now out of her misery, but because of you, couldn't get her mom.
Wow.
Whack you on the shoulder. Yeah, that's really interesting. He never saw her, but the nurse did. So, kind of neat.
Interesting.
So is that a doppelganger? No, I don't know. Doesn't really sound like it, but what is it?
Yeah, what is it? It's crazy.
Julie said that it is a little sad, but it's kind of cool that she lasted to be with her mom. So.
Mm-hmm. This one I thought was interesting because it happens between a couple, but they're not at their own home. So it kind of adds another kind of dimension to this. It says, I was serving in the U.S. Army Reserves and was stationed in southern Alabama in a transportation company. Sometimes my girlfriend would come with me on drill weekends and we would crash at a friend of hers. This particular weekend, I was in a large convoy in the middle of nowhere, well over 100 miles from any city. That was when I got the most confusing, bizarre, and downright creepy phone call of my life. My girlfriend was in utter hysterics, crying and screaming, wondering why I would frighten her so badly, and what my problem was, and asking me how I even pulled it off. After I was finally able to calm her down, this is the story that she relayed to me. That afternoon, she was at her friend's apartment by herself, and suddenly there was a loud bang on the door, followed by several more violent, loud bangs. After looking through the peephole, she saw me. But there was something off. She said I was wearing my army uniform. It looked like me, but I had this very angry, aggravated look on my face. She opened the door, wondering why I was home so early, and apparently, without saying a word, I angrily blew past her, shoulder checking her into the wall, and quickly walked down the hall, turning left into the bedroom and slamming the door behind me so hard that the whole place shook. She was very alarmed and confused about why I was home so early and in such an agitated state. It is so out of character for me. I'm not a violent guy at all. So she's walking behind me, trying to get some information out of me, and she opens the bedroom door behind me and sees the closet door slam shut. She runs over to see what I'm doing in the closet and claims that when she opened the door, it was completely empty. That was when she had a panic attack and called me. Imagine my shock and confusion hearing that story, knowing that I was well over 100 miles away from her at the time. She finally believed me after I sent her a photo with my current GPS location, which only served to freak her out more. Over the years since that happened, I came to learn about doppelgängers. I don't know what they mean, what they represent, or why they come around. All I know is that they are creepy as shit, and a girl I dated for several years came face to face with mine, and it put the fear of God into that poor girl.
Oh, Enzo said, creepy closet monster.
Yeah. So that kind of reminded me of the one you were talking about, like it actually touches somebody. Like
Yeah,
it shoulder checked that poor girl into a wall. Wow.
that's crazy. Julie said, poor girl. No kidding.
Yeah. And why was it so angry?
That's weird. But that's another case of completely out of character with the person,
Yeah.
you know. That's interesting. Okay, I have this super short one, but it's from Reddit. So this is a newer one. And I'm going to, just because it's so weird, but this person just kind of nonchalantly dropped this story and was like, yeah, it didn't really spook me. And I'm like, it spooked the hell out of me. Okay, so it says, I let my dog out at midnight one night, left the door ajar for him to come back in, then went about making some soup and getting something to drink. After a couple of minutes, I hear his distinctive two long toenails trotting back in on the wood flooring. Everybody knows that sound that dogs
Yeah.
make. I lock up the door and return to my meal. I then hear my dog barking from outside. Any dog owner knows there's no mistake what those toenails sound like, so I was a little shocked that he was somehow back outside. Just what had come in. It didn't really spook me. What did you just let in your house, lady?
Yeah.
Mm.
Or or is it the residual? Is it just a replay of her hearing that dog come in over and over again and it just played in her head, or maybe it played out loud, something
I hope
triggered
so.
it?
I hope
I don't
that's what it was.
I don't know.
Mm. Does
Yeah.
her dog astral project often? Right?
It's weird. Okay. When I was about 16 or 17, I was really heavy into playing with the Ouija board. Beware, we always warn against Ouija board play if you don't know what you're doing. Other odd stuff happened around my house, but the doppelgängers were definitely the worst. So this is where they had multiple sightings over years.
Mm.
The first one I experienced was with my mom. I heard her come in the house, and me and my best friend walked down to greet her. She was carrying groceries and looked like a younger version of herself. I tried calling out to her, but she didn't respond. I watched her walk upstairs and into my brother's room. I suddenly got a sick feeling. I called out to her, but she still didn't respond, so I followed her. She wasn't there. When I walked back down, my real mom walked in and didn't know what was going on. She was also wearing a completely different outfit. The next incident was with my brother. My mom was talking to him on the phone. He told her he was getting ready to make his way home. As soon as she hung up, my brother walked in the door. He talked to us for a little and then walked to the bathroom. He had been in the bathroom for like 15 minutes, and then I got that sick feeling again. I had wondered what was taking him so long. Then my real brother walked in the front door, and I freaked out. My mom checked on him all night to make sure that he was actually okay. Both times the fake mom and brother had darker eyes than usual, and it felt sort of like a dream, but I was definitely awake, and other people were there to witness it. So this is one of the occasions where you start hearing about the dark eyes. This is brought up occasionally on these stories, and it kind of leans towards like the black-eyed kids, the black-eyed people kind of thing too. Just a little.
Somewhere I have one. I was going to see if I could find it really quick that had the dark eyes.
Okay.
Let me do it.
Well, while she's looking for that, I'll tell another little short one. This one, it says, at night, I usually go to the bathroom multiple times, but for the past 4 days, every time I go to leave the bathroom, I can see myself still standing in the mirror from the corner of my eye. It is like the other me is watching me leave the bathroom. It terrifies me to the point where I almost run out without looking directly at the mirror. I've never told my husband about it I had never told my husband about it because I didn't want to acknowledge it out loud. Earlier today, I took a nap in our bed while he sat in the chair next to me watching TV. When I woke up, he told me that he had seen me sit up and crawl backwards to the edge of the bed and stand up in front of our bedroom door from the corner of his eye. He thought it was really weird that I had gotten up like that because I'm also in the last month of my pregnancy and I can't really move well without it hurting. He tried talking to me. When I didn't answer, he looked at the door to find me not there and actually still sleeping in the bed. I got really creeped out and I finally told him about what I had been seeing in the bathroom mirror. He thought it was creepy as well, but didn't really want to talk about it anymore because he thinks it will give whatever this thing is power or energy. I have no idea what it wants or why we have both seen it. So,
That's
ew.
freaky. Yeah, I had that one down too. And I'm
Yeah.
looking for the dark eyed one. It's the same exact story that you just told. I was like, I know I
Okay.
have one with dark eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few of them where they have darker eyes than usual, or like they'll look
Yes.
exactly like the person, but when they turn around, like that's void right there.
There's that one physical
Yeah, the
effect.
uncanny valley effect
Yes.
happens,
Ooh,
and yeah.
so weird. Okay, this one's not too horribly long. This is out of the book again, too. Um, and it's called The Phone Was Out of Order, So Her Spirit Came to Say Goodbye. In the summer of 1913, Stella Rife moved away, leaving behind Bernice Moore, her best friend, who was also a double cousin. So Bernice's father was Stella's maternal uncle, and her mother was Stella's paternal aunt. So they came from opposite sides of the family. Um, the two girls had been fast companions and confidants until the Rifes had moved from Lansing, Michigan to Jackson, Michigan. 3 years later, on the evening of December 19th, 1916, Stella and a girlfriend were home alone, getting ready for an evening out with some other young women. Stella was leaving her room and descending the brightly lit stairway when she suddenly froze. Standing in the bright illumination stood my cousin Bernice, she recalled. She looked terrified. I saw her clearly, yet I knew she could not be there. Stella ran hurriedly down the stairs, brushing past the apparition and out the front door. She did not stop until she was a block away from the house. Her girlfriend caught up with her, and Stella tried her best to explain what had so startled her. When they met their friends later that evening, one of the young women who worked as an operator for the telephone company appeared to be troubled. Even before they had greeted one another, she asked Stella if they were aware that their phone was out of order. Someone in Lansing, Michigan had been trying to call the Rife family, the operator said, but as their phone line was down, she said that she would deliver the message personally, since she knew she would be seeing Stella soon. The message was that Bernice Moore had died that evening. When the telephone could not be used to communicate the message, the spirit of her cousin traversed time and space and manifested before Stella to say farewell. So that's another. Is it a
Oh.
doppelganger? Not really. That's more of a, I've died and came back to say goodbye thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty wild, I thought.
It is. Yeah, regardless, good stories, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether which way it leans, still don't know. Don't know how to categorize. Okay, so this one was out of a collection. It was in a book of like collected stories, and it happened to have a doppelganger one in it. And I snagged it because I thought it was really. It's got a creep factor to it. It's also interesting. Um, and it's talking about this girl named Meg. It's actually part of a longer story, but this is kind of the doppelganger section of it. So I'm just going to read this section. It says, one night when Meg was a teenager, she woke up to the sound of someone putting away the dishes in the kitchen. She got up, walked to the hallway, and peeked out. She saw the kitchen lights were on and assumed her mother was awake and putting away the dishes. So Meg crept down the hallway into the living room, and as she neared the kitchen, her mother suddenly walked through the garage door and into the kitchen and stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Meg. Meg still remembers exactly what her mother was wearing, her favorite jeans and a teal sweater, and she recalls her mother looking tired and gazing at Meg as if she didn't realize who she was. Meg asked, "Mom, what's wrong?" And her mother suddenly looked panicked. Meg reached out to touch her, and as she did so, her mother suddenly bent backward and then ran off down the hall to her bedroom. Bent backward. Kind of reminds me of that girl shimmying backwards off the bed. Yeah.
Ugh.
Meg ran after her and was astonished because when she got to the bedroom, her mother was asleep in the bed and wearing her nightgown, not jeans and a sweater. Meg tapped her mother on the side to wake her, and when she did awake, she was very tired and asked Meg if she was all right. Meg asked her mother if she'd been sleeping long, and her mother responded that she had gotten sick at work, left work early, came home, and had actually been asleep for hours. Ew. So, what
Weird.
was making the sounds of the dishes being put away in the kitchen? because when she got there was no one in the kitchen, and then the fake mom comes through the garage door into the kitchen.
So that's almost a combination of things. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like
almost a residual and a doppelganger.
Yeah. So and her mom bent over backwards and then ran off. It gives me the willies.
God. It's so freaky.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go find another one here.
Enzo says a doppelganger that does the dishes may not be so bad.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna if you've read this one, I don't think you have. But just in case, stop me if you have. This one's called a fake mom beckoning her daughter away. And this one is more mimicky, freaky. When I was 9, I stayed home sick from school. I distinctly remember that I wasn't actually sick, simply playing hooky to avoid bullying because kids are cruel, as I did a lot around that age. I woke from a nap, turned on the TV in our living room, and scrolled through some channels when my mother suddenly leaned over the bar and stared at me without saying anything. I'd been awake for a few minutes at this point, so I can't rightly blame sleep paralysis for all of this. Now, whatever this thing was, it was entirely identical to my actual mother. It sounds weird to describe, but it's as if the only difference was that this thing, pretending to be my mom, had never felt a single emotion in its life, and it was unsettling. It beckoned me, and I attempted to talk to her as I would my mother. She kept beckoning, refusing to answer, and that's when I sensed something horribly wrong. Naturally, I started screaming at this thing to answer me, and it just kept beckoning. I bolted, running out of the room and into the yard, yelling for help. My mother, the real one, had been working in the yard and came rushing over. I told her what I'd just seen, and she soothed me with easy explanations that it must have been a fever dream, but thankfully stayed by my side the rest of the afternoon as I was a complete nervous wreck.
Oh my goodness. These are so flippin' creepy.
I know.
It's perfect for Halloween, though. It's spooky season.
It is spooky season.
Okay, I've got one here. So, this one says, I just had an experience, and I am shaken to my core. I was in the Starbucks drive-thru when I noticed the car in front of me. The side mirror showed me the image of the woman inside. It was just a bit of her hair and a corner of her glasses. And I thought, wow, that looks exactly like the shade of biolage I had 2 years ago. And the glasses I wore last year. Then it's her turn to get her order, but she doesn't. She drives through, and as she turns in the side mirror, I finally see her whole face. And it's my face. It's my hair, my face, my glasses. Not similar, not, oh, we have the same nose, but mine. And as she's driving off, I have this feeling like I should be in that car and not in mine, because that's me. It's like I am driving away, but I'm also here. I've been in a daze since, and I still can't shake the weird feeling like I am not really here, or part of me isn't here. It's so weird. It's physical too, like a tightening in the chest. Now I'm starting to think I imagined it all because she was in the lineup, but didn't buy anything. Whoever does that?
That is weird. So, that's almost like a glitch or
like she's feeling a pull towards it, like she's supposed to be up there in that other car.
She knows she's not where she's supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting.
But it's her from like the previous year. Like it's the stuff that she had on the year before. So is it a glitch in the Matrix? Is it a multi-dimension, like a thin touching area? I don't know.
Twisted universe crossover. That's what Enzo said. Julie said a time slip. Yeah.
I don't know.
Ooh, that's freaky.
Yeah. Freaky. And why did the her from the year before in the car not get something, but not get it?
Yeah.
She just drove right through. So.
And not,
I don't know.
Respond like, this is the reason I'm here, like not a realization on the other one's part. That's wild.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. Okay, so this one's out of the book. My mother, Florence Rule, had a dramatic episode some years ago that indicates communication can take place even after the physical body dies. You'll see why I added this one in here in just a second, though. Back in 1955, we were living in a second floor apartment in Glendale, California. On the evening of Tuesday, April 5th, my father, a bookkeeper, was at the office preparing tax forms while I was in my room doing homework. My mother was in the living room dancing to music playing on the phonograph. Suddenly, at approximately 8:10 p.m., a small human form materialized in the room just a few feet away from her. It was a dwarf-sized man, about 3 feet tall, dressed in a colorful cowboy attire, complete with a 10-gallon hat and leather boots. The entity simply stared at her with a smirk on its face, but said nothing. Then, after a moment, it slowly faded away into nothingness. Mother was shaken and called out to me. Describing the incident, she asserted that the man she saw was, without a doubt, her father, and she was certain that he had just visited her from beyond the grave, despite the fact that, as far as she knew, he was in good health at the age of 64 and lived in Pittsburgh. Now, it should be stressed that in life he had been of ordinary stature, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, and to her knowledge, he had never expressed any interest whatsoever in the Wild West, being a lifelong Easterner. But in spite of all these contradictions, she had absolutely no doubt that it was his spirit that had appeared to her. While the entity had smirked at her, she did not feel that it had been menacing. On the other hand, she did not feel it had been friendly either. The two of them had been more or less estranged for several years and rarely communicated. Her apprehensions were confirmed the very next morning when a telegram arrived at 10 a.m., informing her of her dad's demise from a heart attack the previous evening, shortly after 11 p.m. Eastern Time, which had been the exact hour he had materialized before her. So he shows up 3 feet tall, dressed in cowboy attire. A mini Jim Gray would be shocking. Right? Ian said the Lollipop Guild.
Yeah. That's weird.
It's freaky, isn't it? What is that? I mean,
know.
Obviously it's a, hey, I've passed, or your father's passed, so I'm going to appear to you looking like your father. Except I'm only 3 feet tall and I'm dressed like a cowboy. Got my 10-gallon hat on.
Are you sure they weren't like on something, or
is he hankering for a hunk of cheese? You know, the guy that does the dance? I don't know.
Or they ate some bad cheese is what happened, I think.
Maybe. I was like, I've got to put that one in there because that one's wild.
Okay, I have a really interesting one, and this one is a doppelganger, but through video. It's really weird.
Oh.
Yeah. It says, my brother was in the hospital and I had gone to stay with him for the night. We were both in his hospital room. He was sleeping. When I got a call from my mother, she seemed a little concerned. She asked me if I had sent her and my father a video clip of me in a pink surgical mask waving at her. I told her no because I had done no such thing. It turns out that my mother and father were both looking at my father's phone, and on the phone they both saw a video of me, and then it disappeared and they couldn't find it again. Safe to say I was freaked out, and I later talked to them to confirm it was me who they saw in the short video clip, and they confirmed that it was. I even went through her phone to find any trace of the video, but we never could find it again. So it was like a little short video of him in a pink surgical mask waving at them. It came across in a message, and she's like, why are you sending me this thing? And he's like, I didn't send it. And then they went back to go find it again, and it was gone.
What is that?
I don't know.
That's like a glitch. You know, that's like it popped up somewhere where it shouldn't have.
Maybe. Huh. I don't know. Creepy too, though.
It's creepy. Okay, we're getting down to being close to the end here. Is there any others that you wanted to specifically get in?
Oh my gosh. I have so many. We could probably do another show just reading the stories. Here. Okay, here's a little short one that I thought was creepier than all get out. When I was 6, I was playing with Legos in my basement, and my sister came downstairs and asked if I wanted to play, And so we did. Then we played hide and seek, and she told me to hide, and I knew the perfect place. There was a spot in the basement my dad was renovating. He had a piece of drywall on a hinge, kind of like a door, that separated that area from the rest of the basement. So I hid there. The next thing I know, my dad came in, and unknown to me, it was actually a couple hours later. Apparently, I had gone missing, and they had searched everywhere for me. He asked me what I was doing in there, and I told him that I was hiding from my sister. And that's when he told me that she wasn't even home. She had been out with friends all day. He said my imagination must have gotten the best of me. We later found out the basement was haunted by something, and more strange occurrences happened over the years.
Ugh. Nope. Nope.
So she played hide and seek with something that wasn't her sister, and then she had a horrible amount of missing time.
That's not a doppelganger.
I don't know what that is.
Ooh. That's freaky.
Or maybe it was her sister, but it was a multi-dimension thing. Maybe she hit a thin spot and she really did play with her sister, but her sister from a different dimension.
Yeah.
And then when she slid back through, she had that missing time.
Maybe.
I don't know. Really weird.
So that's something else with an alien head. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I don't know.
And when
do you want to pull it?
The video, he said they must have the multiverse unlimited plan.
Wow, I've never heard of that. Do you want to pull up the pictures of the books?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. These are the ones that Jess pulled from.
Yeah, so just let you know, if you're really interested in this topic, there aren't really any books that are just dedicated to this topic. I did find one, it's not even available on Amazon, but it's only like, it was like 100 pages long, and it really just said everything you've heard us say here. Not even everything. We did better than what this book did, so I'm not going to refer to it. However, really interesting, the Nick Redfern book, Shapeshifters, Morphing Monsters and Changing Cryptids, is a really good research source for this. He actually hits doppelgangers, and he also goes into some other cryptids and creatures that actually lean more towards doppelganger than anything else. There's a really great section on it, and I'm a fan of Nick Redfern anyway. Yeah. He does a really great job of explaining phenomenon and theory and stuff in layman's terms. And he even gets into a little bit of how known cryptids do a little bit of like mimicry or doppelganger-ish. For instance, he kind of dives a little bit onto how Bigfoot will do infant calls to get people to come in. So you know, crying. Yeah. And regardless, this book is fantastic. I use this book all the time. It's a good one to have in your library if you are a paranormal cryptid aficionado. And the second one is A Glitch in the Matrix by Jessica Castro. This is one of my favorite books too. She goes into doppelgangers in this one too, and it's also just a collection of stories that are glitch related. And so you're going to go into like doppelganger, and like some of the weird things that we were dealing with tonight, you know, is it a doppelganger? Is it not? She kind of touches on that in this too. And it's just got some fantastic, strange glitch in the matrix stories. I don't know anybody who doesn't love those. So, and it's a smaller book. You can find it on Amazon too. Really great read. Especially fun to read, like if you don't have the tolerance for a long, like novel type situation. Super short stories. You can read a few at a time and then throw it down and then come back to it later. Good book.
She's also, if you're on TikTok, she's on TikTok as Anti-Matrix. And she every day comes in and tells new glitch in the Matrix stories. They're really good. She's got a great Discord too, where they get together and they have movie nights and all kinds of stuff. So if you're really into that kind of thing and you have the time, she's really a fun one to follow.
Yeah.
I like her a lot. Yay. Let's see. And then these are what I used. I have, of course, Hans Holzer's Ghosts book. True Encounters with the World Beyond. There's not a lot on doppelgangers. There's just a very small section, but it was interesting enough to pull from. The one that I've read the most when I keep referring to the book, that's The Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits, and Haunted Places by Brad Steiger. Great book. I used, if you see my copy, you'll see all the, which way, there we go, all the tabs and things. I use this for multiple shows.
Yeah.
It's got all kinds of cool topics in it. And then I also pulled from David Weatherly's Strange Intruders, where, if you remember back to the Black Eyed Kids stories and things like that, that's where I pulled a lot from on that as well. And Richard E. Stepp's Dark Spirits, the Monsters, the Demons, and the Devils. That's where I got the stories of Richard's encounters in Cripple Creek, Colorado. And then the tried and true Mysteries of the Universe, Phantom Encounters, had some great stories in it too. So I pulled from there as well. And I think that's all the major books that we pulled from. The rest we pulled online. And I do have one more story to tell, and this one hits close to home. So the house that I used to live in, it was pretty big. And in the bottom floor in the kitchen, my son, he was probably about 13, 14 at the time. And he was standing in the kitchen facing north, so because he was right in front of the stove. And he was doing something, and to his left is where the doorways come in. And there's two doorways. There's one that comes from the dining room, and then right next to it is one that comes from right under the staircase that goes upstairs. So he saw his dad come through that door by the staircase out of the corner of his eye, and he watched him go by until he was out of his vision. And there's a doorway just around the corner there that when you go into it, it's a very short hall. You can either go down to the basement or you can turn left, and there's a small half bath and then a pantry area. And so, he saw his dad go in there, and, he's waiting on him to come out, and he was like, he's in there a long time. That's kind of strange, but didn't really think anything of it until he heard the staircases creak on the other side and watched his dad come down the staircase from the second floor, knowing full well there's no way he could have gone past him again without him seeing him. And that was, let's see, he's 25 now. So that was about 10 years ago, 10, 12, 13 years ago when that happened. So, yeah.
Crazy.
Pretty wild.
Crazy stuff.
One of his freak out stories to tell. So that's another, is that a residual? Because he did follow that path quite a bit. Or what was it? Was it a doppelganger? Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy stuff. Doppelgangers are one of those. It's an outlier, but it's also not. Like, you saw how many like books that Pam drew from, because I said there's not any really one good definitive book just based on the doppelganger by itself. But I can bet you, if you have any kind of a collection, a small collection of paranormal books, if you have a book that's got like multiple stories in it, like they pulled from Fate magazine or, Great Ghost Stories of America, I can almost guarantee you there's at least one story in there that's a doppelganger.
Hit those indexes, man. That's where you'll find them. And don't just search for doppelganger. Also search for doubles. Also search for fetch. Also search for these different names that they go by, because you may find those stories, it may not have just its specific section. It may just be off under one of those other names.
Yeah. Mimics, stuff like that. Just, and a lot of times it won't even be called that. It's just be called a ghost story.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out later on that grandma wasn't grandma. So, yeah, I don't know. Pam, congratulations to Pam, is now published, I might add.
Yay!
Pam's an official writer. Maybe we could convince Pam to write a book on doppelgangers.
Oh, we totally should.
Because there really isn't one in existence. Not one worth a poo, anyway. The one that I found was kind of eh.
That would be cool. Yeah, we could totally do that.
That's what I'm thinking. All right. Well, does anybody have any more questions or things they want to say about doppelgangers before we head out of here and go to Notebook Games?
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, got a congratulations from Chris. I know, we were all like, woohoo! Super exciting. The robot grandma from Mount Shasta.
That one's wild.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you.
All right. So, oh, notebook time. Woo!
Books
I
up
got
there.
5 of them.
Everybody knows the
Y'all-
drill, I think, that's in here. So choose a notebook 1 through 5 and then a page number 1 through 100. And Jess will pull the magic out and see what's in there.
Yep. I'll read whatever's on that page.
Notebook
Even if
game.
it's lame.
Thank you, Tony. Oh, Ginger's up first. Notebook 5, page 11, please and thanks.
All right.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I had started writing a novel, a fiction novel, and then entered a contest, but it was for a short story that was 6,000 words or less. So I decided to do my main character's backstory, and I did, and they accepted it. And I'm so freaking excited.
Heck yeah. Oh, hold on here. I'm trying to get... I have a little area to work in, so I'm trying to get stuff pulled up. Okay. Here we go. Oh, okay. This is on the Monkey Man of New Delhi, India.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. Some of you may know this story. It's not incredibly old. This happened back in 2001, so not extraordinarily long ago. Mass reports of a monkey-like creature attacking people. Creature described as being around 4 feet tall, covered in thick black hair, a metal helmet, metal claws, glowing red eyes, and 3 buttons on its chest. A few reports claimed it had some type of wheels on its feet. It was also reported to leap huge distances. Many reports included seeing the monkey creature push one of the buttons on his chest, causing the creature to disappear or to become a regular man. There are over 360 official reports recorded. 60 of those sightings resulted in injuries, attempting to run or get out of the way of the creature. 2 deaths were recorded. 1 fell from a building, and the second fell down a staircase during a group encounter that caused a panic. If you guys are interested, like, this really did occur. Now, a lot of people say that it was mass hysteria. However, and I would garner that it says it has over 360 official reports that were given. I would guess that a good portion of those were probably either false, made up for the fun of it, what have you, to join in and be a part of it. But there were a lot of people who were hurt who showed up at the hospital saying they had been attacked by this thing with like huge scratches and bruising. I can't imagine that many people would want to hurt themselves and put themselves in the hospital. So what this thing was, I don't know. I will say, though, that it's not here because this is just a little quick thing that I had written down. I think we were working on like a Ripley's Believe It or Not type of show with the guys.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. Somewhere I have some more on this. It had a lot more on the leaping aspect of it and how it kind of acted around things. And it really sounded a lot like some of the leapers that were happening in the London area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
Interesting one.
Enzo said that sounds a lot like some of the stories out of South America. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, interesting one. Go and look it up. There's a lot of information on it. You can find lots of news reports and photos of people had done drawings and stuff of it. Just look up Monkey Man, New Delhi, and you'll find it. It's crazy stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay, the next one, notebook 2, page 83, please, from Enzo.
Okay. Okay. What is this? Ooh. I gotta get it around my microphone. Okay. This is a... What is this? Oh, okay, I got it. This is an excerpt from a conversation that was going on in Quora. And I wrote it down because I thought it was interesting. I've made little notes to myself to kind of look into it. It's someone's story, so I'm going to read it. This didn't happen to me, but shared by a friend who was very shook up. He was walking down a logging trail in the snowy mountains with a group of friends. He had to go to the bathroom and stepped off the trail behind a tree. He turned around and everyone was gone. He continued down the road, thinking he would catch up with everyone, but didn't. The road suddenly ended. He became very uneasy. His friends seemed to have completely disappeared. A crow came and started cawing at him. He somehow felt the crow was trying to help. He turned around and started walking back on the same road. He arrived at the parking lot to find his very worried friends, who were contemplating calling for help. They too had walked to the very end of the road and had turned back with absolutely no sight of him. And I had made little notes at the bottom: time slip, time shift, missing time, crow. I had intentions of going back and kind of digging in on this a little bit more. I don't think I did.
Interesting.
Yeah. You know, probably a missing time slip kind of thing, but what did the crow have to do with it? Or maybe it was just coincidental. I don't know.
Odd. Enzo said, weird, the crow knew he was going the wrong way. Yeah.
Maybe.
And he said, thanks.
You're welcome.
Those pics look like Gazoo from the Flintstones.
Yeah.
A little.
Weird looking little critter. I forgot about Gazoo. That's funny.
It is. Okay, the next one's from Julie. Book 5, page 79, please.
Okay. It's funny.
I forgot about Gazoo, too. That is hilarious. Now I have to go look at his picture again. Oh, while we're waiting, while Jess is pulling that up, just a reminder for everyone that's in the area that goes to the Paranormal Club meetings. It is moved to October 11th this month. The library is holding their Spooky Tales and Tea on the 18th, and we didn't want to clash with that, so we pushed Paranormal Club up a week. So it's not this Saturday, but a week from Saturday.
And it'll be the Halloween party, so bring food and drinks and your favorite spooky story, and everybody will just hang out and have a good time. I think I can't be there, but I think that the rest of the gang will be there, and they're going to be talking about some of like the crazier cases that we've been on. I'm kind of sad I'm not going to be there because it's always fun to talk about the weird ones.
Yeah, it is. Those are different.
Okay, so this one has several on it. So what this section is, I was working on local haunts and things that happened within our area of Kansas. And this one has 3 on it, and I'll read them. So the first one has the Hanging Bridge near Frontenac, Kansas. It's actually in a little defunct town called Litchfield, Kansas. It was a small mining town that's now deserted, and now it's just left with a couple buildings and a bridge. The legend is that you park on the bridge, turn off the engine, and you will start to hear feet dragging across the roof of your car. Supposed hangings by lynch mobs happened from the bridge's trusses above. I have no notes below, which means I never found anything on it to justify the story. Just to let you know, I usually make a note to myself if I find any kind of relevance to it. The next one I have is Hosey Hill Cemetery in Weir, Kansas.
Hosey Hill?
Yeah, Hosey Hill.
Interesting.
Hosey. Yeah, It's in Weir, Kansas. Weir, Kansas is like...
It's very small.
It's a teeny tiny. It's like... I think there's only a couple hundred people that like live in the area, and they don't actually mostly live in the town. They live in the rural.
Very rural.
Yeah. Pretty little cemetery though. Inside the cemetery is a statue that is the grave marker of Mrs. Pringle. They call it the Pringle statue. And the legend is that on the night of a full moon, if you place your finger on the eye of the statue, it will come back wet, because she sheds tears from her painful death. Now, I don't have any notes from this one either because I couldn't find anything on the statue. So, I don't know.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is.
That is weird.
It's one of those ones that I think I was going to use in the cemetery games, but didn't end up using it because there wasn't anything more to it than
Yeah, makes
the
sense.
quick little. There wasn't really a legend behind it. So,
So everybody made sure to let me know that October 11th is actually this Saturday, not next Saturday. My bad. So sorry. But thanks
Yeah.
for correcting me because I would have just derped right along with what I said. So.
it'll be all right. I missed it too. The last one on this page is the ammunitions plant out of Parsons, Kansas.
Enzo said she sheds tears from being poked in the eye. How did they discover that?
Who'd have thunk it, right?
Ginger said Weir is big enough to have a library. Yes, they are, because we do trade stuff.
Mm-hmm. Little tiny joint though.
Wait a
right
minute.
up on the edge.
Pan.
It's right near the border of Missouri, I believe. Like it's right up the edge of Kansas. So
it's it's a few miles east of Oswego, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
It's in that area.
There's a lot of those towns out there. So that's old mining area. Like you've heard us talk about Galena, Kansas before, and all of the, like it wasn't anything for parts of the town to fall in, buildings to cave in on themselves from the mines collapsing underneath. That's all that area out there. And there are little tiny deserted or, like almost deserted towns everywhere because they got really big really fast and then they just died when they ran out of stuff to mine. So
yeah. And Big Brutus is still out in that area too, which, they built this huge crane to mine with, and he was only in service a few years before they pretty much mined it out. So, but it was too big to cart away, so it's now a museum. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so the last one on this page is the ammunitions plant in Parsons, Kansas. And this one is actually haunted. It's haunted by 2 former employees that were killed in the 1980s during an ammunitions explosion. So this really happened. When the plant was reopened in the 90s for production during the Gulf War, reports of phantom bicycle bell ringing, the building shaking and screams, reported nightmares, visions, and bad feelings, shadows and burning smells were all reported. And they're still reported to this day. It's still being used as an ammunitions plant, just a little slightly different. It's not underneath the U.S. government anymore. Now it's privately owned. So in my notes, because this one's for reals, Kansas AAP, Kansas Army Ammunitions Plant, established 1942, located near Parsons, Kansas, produced ammunition during World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, and the Gulf War. The plant was deactivated on March 4th, 2009 as part of the base realignment and closure of 2005. The plant is currently owned and operated by Day and Zimmerman, Inc., and primarily produces mortar ammunition. Kansas AAP produced artillery and mortar shells, sophisticated air-dropped munitions with advanced guidance and control systems. So, here's what happened. On July 26, 1989 at 4:20 p.m., a BLU-97 cluster bomb being manufactured in Building 1113 killed 2 employees, Gerald Jenkinson and Shirley Lever. Martin Bartholomew, working nearby, was injured when shrapnel, and it's going to get gross, guys, I'm sorry. Shrapnel and parts of Jenkinson and Lever entered his stomach and head. 3 others were lightly injured. Army investigation concluded that the explosion was caused by a fuse being damaged while Jenkinson screwed it onto the body of the bomblet. Confirmed that supervisors used bikes with bells to quickly get from building to building. The bikes and bells were used to hurriedly warn workers to evacuate after the explosion. So that explains why part of the haunting is hearing the bicycle bells dinging rapidly over and over and over again. And they still hear it today. A lot of people won't work there because of how bad it is, especially in that particular building. If you want to hear more about it, you can get up online and look it up. It's one of the worst disasters in Kansas. The cleanup took 2 weeks because they had to bring in bomb brigades to sit there and clean up everything a little bit at a time. And the disturbing part of it, which is one of the reasons why I think the place is so horribly haunted, they had to take care of the bombs first. They couldn't go in and clean up the two that had been exploded. And they talked about the gentleman who went in there first to get rid of the bomb stuff, talked about having parts fall on them from the ceiling.
Check this
It
out.
took
I was
them
looking it up
2
because
weeks.
I was thinking that there was that they do ghost tours there sometimes. So I was trying to see if they're
They
still
might.
doing those or not. But I ran across this, which is really wild. It's on KansasHauntedHouses.com, and someone had posted. I was working in that explosion. I was working there, and next to the explosion that killed Gerald and Shirley, we all that wasn't hurt or killed ran outside. The chain reaction would happen. I seen he's still alive, so no names. Man covered in their blood and wounded badly. I haven't been back since the day of that explosion, but the supervisors and maintenance people did ride bikes and rang the bike bells so we could get out of their way. We could get out of their way in the long halls between buildings and other work areas. I do have dreams vivid of the explosion, not often, but I do still have them. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's wild.
It was bad. So I mean, imagine. So it took them 2 weeks to get all of the bomb stuff, like out of there, to make sure that it was safe enough that cleanup could go in. It was the middle of July, and it evaporated those two people. I think the only thing bulky left was the bottom half of Shirley.
Oh, geez.
And they said, though they were working, they were trying to like disengage bomb stuff. There were parts and pieces falling on them from the ceiling as they worked. It
Oh, my
was
God.
everywhere. And the guy who ended up at the hospital, Bartholomew, he never could work again. He was so badly hurt from the shrapnel, and they had to take parts of them out of him.
Oh, my God.
It
It's
it
awful.
blew it all. Yeah. So I know why it's haunted. Holy cow.
Yeah, no wonder. Ginger said I used to make parts deliveries to Kansas ammunition plant in the early 90s. It was creepy even then. That's wild. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's a crazy haunting, and it's still haunted to this day. Like there's people who refuse to work there. So, because
Yeah.
of what happens. All right, so I had Tony's up next, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
book 3, page 66.
Yes. So we're going to go to the lighter side of things now. Let's move away.
Yay!
Although I don't know what gets more Halloweenier than, exploding bombs. Anyway, this one is on raining lemmings in Alaska. Yeah. So this is part of we were doing a series with the guys of crazy, like, believe it or not, type of stories. And we had been doing, like, Enzo had brought up, like, the meat falling, the raining meat in Kentucky, and
Yeah.
frogs and fish and birds and stuff like that. And I had this one lined up. I don't know if we ever got to it. It's in a big, bulky section of it. But this is out of Alaska. And this is a for real part of the Eskimo, like, I don't even want to say mythology. It's a part of their belief system. And there's something odd about it. Uh, so I'm just going to read it. While staying in Nome, Sally Carragher, an explorer naturalist, was hoping to catch a few lemmings to take back to California. She was told by Eskimos that the creatures often drifted down slowly from the skies. Proof of this was that their tracks began abruptly in the snow. She did not take the story seriously until one day in April 1952, the Eskimo postmaster at I always say this wrong, Unalakleet, informed her that a few of the creatures had dropped down at the end of the town's airstrip, excuse me. And this is an excerpt from Carragher's book, Wild Voice of the North from 1952. The blacktop was covered with less than an inch of new, light, soft snow, too shallow for any lemmings to tunnel under it without thrusting up a ridge on the surface. And there indeed were the mysterious little trails, just as the Eskimos had described them. In 15 places, a track began rather faintly for a couple inches, as if an animal had come down gently and I can't even read that. And gently and something onto the snow. The tracks then continued more deeply, the individual footprints showing clearly, and also the slight brush marks between the footprints where the hairs on the lemmings' feet dragged. In each case, the tracks led off the blacktop to a clump of grass where the lemmings evidently had burrowed down amongst the roots. And I put a note down below. The native peoples living within the Arctic Circle call lemmings Kelung mituks, or mice from the sky. And that they fall, in their stories, they fall in descending circles that rotate clockwise, and that they fall from a distant star. So in the Eskimo religion and belief system, lemmings are not native to the earth. They come down from from another place in the sky.
How interesting. Huh.
Yeah. One of those little weird. Yeah.
That's a wild one. That's why
it
is so fantastic.
All right. So we got book 2, page 40.
Yep.
For N.
So said, wow. Yeah, right?
Little crazy.
Tony said, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
We've got him, and then we've got one after him.
Okay. This one is literally a listing. This is from one of our Bordertown Presents. This is a listing of all the crybaby bridges in Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri.
Oh boy.
It's just a listing. So I'll just read it. So it's not going to be too awfully long. We did a series on urban legends in the 4 states area just to prove to people how often they're repeated and attributed to your local areas. And this is one of the ways that we did it. We just made a listing of crybaby bridges, and you're going to think, oh, there's maybe 1 or 2 here and then 1 or 2 over there, and we're done. It's not it at all. So crybaby bridges in Kansas, Caney, Wichita, Olathe, Kansas City, Osawatomie, Emporia, Barnes, Gypsum, and Pittsburgh. All of those towns have one baby bridge, crybaby bridge. Oklahoma gets hairy. So we've got Catoosa, Lake Overholser, Tulsa, Kellyville, who has 3. They kind of hold the record. Kiefer, Lawton, Schulter, Draper, Del City, Cache, Moore, Oklahoma City, Hontovie, Muskogee, Sapulpa, Kitchen Lake, Copan, Bixby, Veneta, Ripley, Alderson, Shawnee, Weatherford, Pryor, Norman, McAllister, Tahlequah, Tecumseh, Fremont, Walikga, Sayre, and then Missouri, we've got Brookfield, Chillicothe, Florence, Senath, Brothiel, Springfield, Arcadia, Lebanon, Climax Springs, Ditmer, Hornesville, Windyville, Ricky Road. In Arkansas, we've got Scott, Quitman, Bentonville, Springfield, and Fayetteville. So that's just in those 4 states. And there's probably more.
Probably. Yeah.
Little tiny local ones that never made it, onto the internet. They're just little local haunts that, like the high school kids like to go out to that have never really made it on the internet for me to see. So it may be like the rule of like Brian Terrell's like rule of 10 for every,
everyone, there's 9 more.
Yeah. There's 9 more that weren't reported. So times 10.
Okay. Very well, Kitty. That's wild.
That's what that was. Yeah. And we also did we did Lover's Leaps and Gravity Hills and Dead Man's Curves.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a fun one.
It was. It was a good one. Okay, the next one is Notebook 4, page 28, please.
Okay.
Julie said she knows one of one in Harvey County too. So.
Oh, see? Yeah. So
And so
Okay.
talking about the mice falling out of the sky, it's not like they get a lot of tornadoes in Alaska to base lore on. No joke. That's wild. That makes it even more interesting.
Yeah. And it was written about by a woman who specialized in, nature-based things. So, I mean, I can't imagine she would have put her whole thing on the line just for some floating lemmings.
Yeah.
This page is on the Cowlitz Indian tribe of the Pacific Northwest. And this is part of Bigfoot lore. So, I think it's been about a year, maybe more ago, I did a special round table with some guys and over on the Monstrous podcast. We did like a Bigfoot round table where we just kind of like deep dove what we thought the origins of Bigfoot were, and this is part of that research.
Cool.
So, the Cowlitz Indian tribe, Mount St. Helens apes lived near the mountain for over 300 years. The old chiefs told of seeing white birds that would land and let hairy, giant-sized people out of them that speak the language of the Aboriginal people that were here when they first arrived. They have stories about these giant-sized people who carried away many Indian girls. They know how to dry salmon on flat rocks in the sun and store them in caves for the winter in the high country. They saw the objects drop out of the sky over 300 years ago and land with many odd-looking people that have big eyes, wear silver-colored suits that shine in the sun, that they said makes their eyes hurt and burn. They have a blue light that stops all kind of animals. They could also disappear and reappear. And then down underneath that, I had started on MIND theory or mind theory, mental investigations in new dimensions, written in 1966, being called Saturnians or Venusians, who function on a different vibrational plane, crashed here and began to evolve into what we see as Bigfoot. Claims their brothers sometimes rescued them so they can leave Earth and re-evolve them. And then it goes on. We were really like deep dive in some of the crazy like 60s and 70s theory groups that just deep dove like Mount Shasta, Bigfoots, and it's we got crazy on that show. If you want to go back and watch it, it's on Monstrous podcast from like a year ago. It was just I think we could just call it Bigfoot Roundtable. It's really interesting to get everybody's ideas together. It was a fun one.
That is awesome.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Do we have any others?
That was it. Nope.
That's it?
That was it. Yeah. We're not doing that. 908.
Yeah.
Woo.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we're good to go. I hope you all had a spooky evening with us with our crazy doppelganger stories. That was fun.
That was fun.
Do you have anything to add before I take us out?
Just be sure to tune in to our next show. We're going to have our Halloween special. We're going to have some special guests on and tell some spooky stories and hopefully have a lot of fun. I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
All right. So before you leave out, everybody, a big old thank you for everybody who hung out in the chats and played the notebook game and, hung out with us while we talked about crazy doppelgangers. It was certainly fun. Everybody, real quick, if you haven't yet, do that like and share, thumbs up, hit things, shake bells, do your stuff. We appreciate it so much. Make sure to send us your story ideas or your show ideas you want to hear. Remember to find us wherever you get your podcast if you want to listen in. Check us out every other Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, as Pam said, our next one will be our big Halloween show on the 22nd. Don't miss it. It's going to be so much fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Fun.
And I think that's about it. So everybody, enjoy your October. It's going along swimmingly. It could be a little bit cooler, I think, though.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll get there.
Hopefully it'll get there. All right, y'all. Everybody have a fabulous evening. Keep it weird, keep it strange, and remember, it's all connected. Good night.
Good night, everybody.